This video is mainly about the hands, but I'm just showing the context of the body to begin with. And these are the hands with the index finger and the middle finger extended, displaying the peace sign or the victory symbol. I'm just blocking it in at first, and I don't do preliminary studies with these. I work it out as I go along. The important thing is to get the gesture right and then work on the detail later. But there's a checklist of maybe 75, 100 things or more that you have to go through along the way to make this a realistic model. However, just getting the gesture right, there aren't that many things. For example, if you look at the back of the hand when doing the peace symbol, it's basically a box, almost a square shape, because the thumb is tucked around to the front of the hand. And then the two upright fingers are elongated boxes. And the back of the hand is mainly bone and tendon. But the front of the hand is mostly fat pads and muscle with a hollow in the center of the hand. And it's a good idea not to put a lot of symmetry when you're posing the hands, like I have one of the fingers, the middle finger kind of rotating inward a little bit and the index finger rotating a little backwards. And there's a lot of variations like that in real life when you do certain work where you're always writing or something like that. One finger can bend a little bit over time. Your bones are pliable throughout your whole life, and they can go in a direction where you lose stature as you get older, but at the same time you can alter that to correct stature. But most people don't. They don't go to a physical therapist. They just watch themselves degrade because they think that's part of the natural aging process. But your bones aren't like you would imagine a skeleton in a biology class or an art class where it's dead and it's unpliable. They're pliable, but it's just over a long period of time. And of course it's important to get the wrist right, the end of the radius and the ulna bone on the outside of the wrist. Hint at the metacarpals bridging over to the hand. The turnaround of Roger Stone, who was a subject of this, who's giving the peace sign, that took about 2 hours to do, a rough in of the whole body. And now I'm back to the hands. The most distal section of the non-thumb fingers, where the tips of your fingers are, is curved if you look at it from a side view. The medial section of the non-thumb fingers is closer to a straight line in a side view. However, the most proximal section of the non-thumb fingers, especially on the middle and ring fingers, is curved. Not making all the sections of the non-thumb fingers round, by making sure that the middle section is straighter, adds variety and creates a more realistic look. Look at your own hands from the side and you'll notice that the middle section of the non-thumb fingers is more or less straight, and that contrasts with the roundness of the proximal and distal sections. Another thing to notice is that your fingernails are curved or rounded instead of flat. Just like you have to become accustomed to sculpting the eyes as curved or spherical, even though most of that sphere is deeper inside your skull, the fingernails have a curved shape as well. When you look at the eyes from a low angle, you can see the roundness, and when you look at the fingertips from a top view, you can see their roundness. And the fingers are closer to a box shape. If you had to boil them down to the most basic shape, they wouldn't be cylinders sticking out of the box. That's the rest of your hand. It would be an elongated box, and then as you're sculpting, you would just round or smooth out the edges a little bit so it's not a sharp-edged box. And there's a lot of wrinkles in the hand, especially if you pose them. And it's good to do hands from a lot of different angles. And you'll notice that the wrinkles in your hand are kind of like wrinkles in clothing, just like you have to know all the different types of folds and cloth and so forth. It's the same thing with the hands the more you get into it, because when you bend the fingers, you're creating tension in the webbing between the fingers. For example, the middle finger in this one and the ring finger, you'll notice as this goes along, there's tension lines that are pulling apart the webbing in the finger, pulling it forward. And this whole model is very low resolution. You can see the polygons. I haven't subdivided it to the extent where you can't see the polygons, so I'm working with limited amount of resolution here. So it's going to be a little tricky to sculpt some of these areas that don't have a lot of resolution, because I already went from dynameshing it to subdivision, and I'm just going to stick with this resolution, although I could get this much more detailed than I have this at the end just by subdividing it more and just keep working on it and taking it to a higher level of detail. But there's a lot of tension going on in the fingers and the hand, palm of the hand. Like I say, the webbing between the fingers, it's just like the rules with cloth and clothing. I mean, they go hand in hand. And the more you know about those rules, the less you have to look at reference. It'll just come to you naturally. Well, if this hand's in this position, that would have to create tension marks in this area. And the finishing touch on this was just detailing a little bit more of the radius and the ulna, just so there's a better bridge between the forearm and the hand. Then at the end I just do a quick turnaround of the model. I'm going to complete the whole sculpture, upper body and all, and then I'm going to render it out looking like a statue. But for the purposes of this particular sculpture, this is all the detail I need, because there's not going to be any great zooms into the hands. The hands aren't really the central feature. They're important because he's giving the victory and or peace sign, and that's symbolic, as I explained in a previous video. I'll have a finished rendered version in another video.